I'll just hit record, see if it's recording. We're recording. Cool.
Josh, what's today, the 18th?
Today is the 18th.
Yeah, so you're kind of living this time lapse where I don't even know what the...
See how it sounds. Kind of just say ABC or whatever.
ABC, it's Ron White.
Bring it a little closer to your mouth.
It's Ron White coming at
Perfect.
you from Josh.
Perfect. Right about there is good. Okay.
Cool.
I don't use the headphones when I'm doing it with people.
Cool.
I do it when I'm by myself, but we'll just go ahead and hit record. For the YouTube audience, this is the Stuff I Heard podcast, and I'm just going to start the audio now. So if you're listening or watching or whatever, you know how this works. Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Stuff I Heard podcast. And today happens to be the 200th episode. 200 times that I've done this crap, and I can't believe it's been 200 times. If you're listening right now, everybody's in a weird craze about the coronavirus, and we're all going to die, and all this frustration. We're not all going to die. I mean, some of you will. Sorry. It's just a fact. Wait, I guess technically we're all going to die.
Well, you hear this sound a lot. You know,
Not to bring it all down. Oh, there's ASMR, so people are into that kind of stuff. You can geek out about hearing rubber gloves. Today is the 18th, which is a Wednesday, the day after St. Patty's Day. We got a special guest here. This is Ron White. You want to say hey?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Now, a lot of you going, Ron White, isn't that a comedian? No, it's not a comedian. He is funny, but
not quite tater salad, though. So.
He's not tater salad, but he does have some pretty damn cool stories. I met Ron a long time ago, and we've stayed in touch and lost touch and reconnected and all that fun stuff, as people do. And, we're having a chance to get together today, and I thought, hey, wouldn't this be cool if I could get together with you for the 200th episode?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. It's quite a privilege. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, man.
So, we were talking earlier about all kinds of fun stuff with Star Wars and all this and that and histories of our families and all this good, groovy stuff. And I thought, wow, we're missing out on a lot of good content. And I hate to miss all that and then start over, but we kind of are. One of the things that I thought was very interesting when I first met you was your history. I mean, the fact that you weren't from here and you lived a totally different life before ever coming here. And I thought, this is the story I kind of want to hear. This is the background stuff that no one really knows.
Yeah, well, so people that have gotten to know me over the years here know that I'm not from South Carolina, though I do claim South Carolina as my home state, and that's another story entirely, but because I've been here for over 30 years now. But I grew up on a sailboat that my mother and father designed and built from the ground up by their own two hands. And I was born onto that sailboat after it was launched and ended up sailing around the world for the majority of my youth life until I was 17, just before I was 17 years old, and ran away from my dad, I think, right before I turned 17. And I just was tired of the lifestyle. And sailing around the world is an incredible experience, but it's also some of the most terrifying experiences you can ever imagine. So
this is way before computers and GPS.
When we started sailing around the world, we didn't have a navigation system like they have on the big ships did. If you have a big container ship or an oiler or something which is traveling around, they have sat-nav, which puts them globally down to within seconds of their true position, which we used to our advantage because we could always hail one of those ships if we wanted to confirm our navigation, because we navigated with a sextant on charts, sun and moon, stars. But
you have no heads up of weather. You're basically just kind of looking out.
Well, you have radio direction finder, which will pick up shortwave radio from all around the world, and so you can triangulate your position by knowing what direction the signal's coming from. You can spot out where your relative position is to a broadcast that you know on the map, and then when you hone in on another one and find its direction, you can find the intersect plots on a chart. So that which will give you very close coordinates to where you are. But
most kids are learning their ABCs. You're learning how to navigate.
Yeah, my dad had me navigating with a sextant by the time I was 6 years old, and I had to read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica set. Was one of my projects that my dad made me do from A to Z, the entire leather-bound books from the 70s. And it was kind of a monotonous reading. Some of it's really incredible, but I finished my high school equivalency, Josh, I think when I was like 11 years old. And so then my dad was insistent that I start going on to like a collegiate level of homeschooling, because he was a professor also in mathematics.
Really?
Yeah, he taught up in Chicago. And when they first escaped Hungary in 1956, which was my parents' origins, as you'd met my mother before, so
Yeah.
that's where the accent comes from, like a Zsa kind of thing. And but my mom was a revolutionist in Hungary. She and my father was a star athlete, was the fastest man in the world in 10,000 meter racing single man canoe. Racing canoe, not to be confused with the canoe that we go cruising around.
Yeah.
Here in the creeks and stuff, but rather a racing canoe, which is an A-frame hull. Looks like if you're looking at it, looks like a V, very narrow, 1.5 feet wide and about 17.5 feet long. And you try and balance in that is a feat in its own right, because you're sitting there. It's very light wood, very light construction, very fast.
Was that similar to the boats that you see teams like rowing teams in?
If you were to take one of those rowing boats, it's very similar to that in a lot of aspects, and down to the last details. They're double enders, they're pointed on both ends, and the difference being is that those boats are built much heavier and much bigger. When you bring that racing canoe down, a single man canoe 17 feet long, you don't sit in the boat. You're actually kneeling. If you're left-handed, my dad was a lefty, so his right knee is forward, and you're putting your right foot into a stirrup, and your left knee is underneath you in the center balance into a cup, and your foot hits a stopping point behind you.
So you're not actually on a seat. You're supporting yourself with your legs.
You're supporting yourself up with your leg.
Wow.
If you're a left-handed canoeer, you'll be on your left knee.
Is it one of those deals where it's got the rows on each side, or
no,
a single row both sides?
You have a paddle. And the Olympic canoeing, man, most of it's phased out. The race that my father was champion in, and undefeated in his career, was the 10,000 meter race. And that's a grueling thing. So I think that's where my dad's interest in the water came from in his life, had to be. But he's on a postage stamp as well.
Really?
Yeah, my father's on a Hungarian postage stamp.
What's your dad's name?
Vice Zoltan. You know?
Oh, that sounds like a Flash Gordon character.
Yeah, you know, that's my son's middle name, Darian Zoltan.
That sounds
so
cool.
All the kids, he thought he'd be teased in school over that,
Yeah.
And instead of being teased in school, all the kids were into this anime and stuff, and they said, "Oh, your name is so cool! It sounds like a superhero."
It does sound like a Marvel character almost.
It's pretty cool. It's a very common Hungarian name, just like Attila would be very common also.
Right.
But back to the canoeing, that when you're in that canoe, the hard part of that, I've raced with my dad in a canoe like that at a young age. We raced together here in the States a few times, and the hard part is learning your balance.
Oh yeah.
When you're in motion forward, much easier. But the way you extend, like if you're a canoeer and you're racing like that, your left arm will reach the top of the paddle that you're holding. If you're right-handed, you put your left hand on the handle.
Yeah.
But it fits over the top of it. The wood is very, very thin, long, and then your hand actually is extended right next to the blade itself, because it was made of such a light material so you can lift and stroke fast. You have the weight, you wear yourself out.
Oh yeah.
But the result in that is that it was so fragile, you had to use your hand at the connecting point as support, and you would pull with your hand along that blade. My dad averaged 75 strokes per minute for 10,000 meters, and also would arrive across the finishing line and would immediately go unconscious and fall into the water. They had to have swimmers that were standing by to immediately get him out of the water, or he would drown, because he spent, and he just went like that. He was just non-stop workhorse. You couldn't stop him. It was just unbelievable.
He would just burn out all of his energy.
All the energy going
probably
into
hold his breath. And that last little bit. And everything.
It's just, I don't know how he did it. I just know that it was really a lot of drive. And so I remember my dad's nowhere near as tall as me. Wasn't, I'm 6'4", so a lot of my life, as a teenager, I was already taller than him. But I couldn't, even with my long, lanky reach, I could never put my arms around my father, who, being maybe like 5'11", 5'10", It was average Hungarian height for a male at the time, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It was a tall, pretty tall male.
Very muscular.
But muscular, barrel-chested, and just solid. He was like a hunka to the girls. That's how my mom fell in love with him. My mom was on the Hungarian kayak team.
Really?
And so she got and let mom's a kayaker. And so when World War II happened, my father was a Holocaust survivor, and everyone in his family was killed except for what I understand to be my grandfather, his father,
mm-hmm.
and one brother. Everyone else is dead. It was just wiped out. And when the Germans started their solution there, Hungary unfortunately was aligned with the Germans by, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In World
mm-hmm.
War I, the Hungarians had their prince and princess that were assassinated, I think in Sarajevo.
Mm.
And that's what started World War I, and so the Germans immediately came into line with their Austrian-Hungarian counterpart, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Austria-Germanic, and so it naturally brought Germany into it, and that's how you have the access there. But in World War II, Hungary was still aligned with the Germans, unfortunately. There might not have been an impassioned desire on the Hungarians. In fact, it was not to be supportive of Hitler's ideas. It was just a natural alliance because of their bloodlines.
Yeah.
At that point, being intermingled enough to.
And being so close, it's like, what do we do? We die here because we're so close? Or?
Well, the Germans, they were occupying Budapest and Hungary and stuff, and of course, it was really important strategically for the Germans because you're reaching all the way into Romania, which didn't exist until World War I ended. That was Hungary also.
Mm-hmm.
So Romanians like to claim this. I hate to tell you that, guys, you were fans of Dracula, but if you think that Dracula is somehow Romanian, nope, you need to check up on that, because actually, I think he's Turkish. So it's like he happened to have loyalty to the Hungarians, and Hungary was that part of the world.
Is that true that it's also based on Vlad the Impaler?
Now, Vlad is that is him. And Vlad, I think, is from what I've read about, and in Hungary, been able to learn about it and confirm from what their oldest stories are about that individual, was that he was a Turk of birth who was loyal to the Hungarians, aligned with them, and actually defended Hungary's interest in the Muslim invasion of Hungary, which took place in Europe. I don't remember the years. I'm not always that good on remembering years off the top of my head, but historically, it's a really interesting event because it formed even the Christianity's rootage, because Hungary is about 1,100 years old as a nation, as a Christian nation. And but by the time it became a Christian nation, it was one of the Hun clan leaders who was, I think, later generation from Attila himself, maybe.
Mm.
Is that he finally said, you know what, the stuff that Attila and them are doing, it's not going to work. These countries are going to unify against us, and we're going to eventually get wiped out. So they sent an entourage to Rome. The first king of Hungary is Saint Stephen. He's a saint. And King István sends his father sends an entourage to Rome requesting a crown for Hungary in a truce, and to educate his son to become the first king of Hungary as a Christian king.
Hmm.
The first entourage from Rome was sent as a response with a crown, but they sent the wrong crown. And at that time, István's father immediately recognized that it wasn't a crown like the other crowns he had heard of. It wasn't domed. A king's crown is never an open ring,
mm-hmm.
like you see in the movies. It's a domed crown which has a cross on the top of the dome. And this is to signify that you are a king amongst men, but you answer to the King of Kings.
Yeah, there's the show on Netflix, The Crown, where they talk about they believe that the crown was ordained by God and the direct descendant of God in that sense, and that they were the direct line of God.
He was granted the authority by God to be king.
Which you hear about in the formulation of our own country, how they wanted to separate the church and the state for that main purpose, because they were like, we don't want to fall into the same monarchy type system. Mm-hmm. But it's that fear of saying I am the all knowing, you're going to bow to me, and And it is a way to subdue your people and to lead your people, but it's also not great.
I agree 100%. I've been to a lot of the places where the kings have been and all that, and all the royalty and the blue bloods. Fortunately, I don't have any of that in my family, even if I'm a pure blood Hungarian, which doesn't really mean much, But the thing is, this really neat. It plays all together politically in the story of my family because it really revolves around politics. And so Hungary, the destiny of that nation becomes over 1,100 years ago that the first crown that was sent over was the wrong kind of crown. And so the barbarian chieftain has all the priests killed.
Because he feels disrespected.
And sends one of them back with the crown and says, next time, send the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, Rome, at that time, church is still split. No, maybe it's just unified. Remember, the Christian church was Constantinople and Rome.
Yeah.
That was the church that the apostles started.
It was like 400 years after the death of Christ, Constantinople converted.
Yes, Constantinople becomes the first Christian emperor of Rome, and it's like there's a very good book that you can read if you can get a hold of it. It's called Martyrs of the Colosseum, and it is a collection of the writings of the Roman poets over the last 300 years of the history of the Roman Empire as it revolved around the blood pit. And it's an incredible book and gives you a huge perspective if you're interested in Christianity's history. There you will find probably one of the most incredible books ever put together, which show just how Christianity took over the pagan world. Mm. People have a misconception and think that Christians were fed as lions, when in fact, the Roman poets say differ, that they attempted to kill Christians in front of lions, but the people who were filling that stadium in Rome were transfixed when they suddenly were in the presence and witnessing firsthand the power of the real God, because those lions would lay prone at the feet of the Christians who, when led into the pit, would sing prayer, and then the lions would lay at their feet and attack the soldiers. The only successful way, according to those writings, that Christians were truly killed in that period of time was by the sword. They tried boiling them in cauldrons of oil. They tried many different methods, and miracle after miracle happened to it, resulting in even a Roman emperor converting to Christianity, because they saw what a real God's power was. And so it's the basis of faith in Christianity is to understand that history and to understand just how did Christianity really take over the entire world. Rome was critical, and it was the most powerful force, the Roman Empire. They were directly involved with Christ's crucifixion, and yet they succumbed to the very same religion of the God that they killed. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing thing, and it's so the book is, I'm not, you'd think I was trying to promote him or something, but it's an old book, and it's really well done, and it's called Martyrs of the Colosseum. It's still available online, I think on Amazon or something. You can still get hold of it. I just recently saw a copy. They're still making them.
We just watched a thing the other night, Disney Plus also, I guess Disney owns National Geographic, and part of their online service is they have a series by National Geographic. They did a thing about the tomb that supposedly Jesus is buried in, and it's there was a renovation project that was involved with the fact that this tomb was built supposedly by Constantinople during the time, and that they go through the history of it, and they believe that where Christ was buried, that the people of his time were so pissed off that he was even revered as a Messiah that they built a Athena temple on top of it. And when he converted, he had the temple removed and all of the land removed around it. But basically, he just took a mountain of a monument and the mountain itself, had everything removed except for the actual tomb, and then built this monument thing on top of it to house the tomb of Christ. And this thing has been around for 1,800 years, whatever it is, 1,600 years. The tomb is made of marble, and the tomb is actually falling apart. So, there was a big thing about how they wanted to replenish this tomb. They didn't want the tomb to fall apart. They have this religious. There's like 4 or 5 different religious groups in this area that all claim that they have rights to this area. They all have to meet on a council and approve of anything that's done. And finally, these scientists were able to convince them this needs to be done, and this is going to fall apart right here. I mean, we can do the work, but we kind of need time to do it. And we're going to be respectful and blah blah blah. So they do the work, and in the meanwhile, there's a question about whether this is the actual tomb or if it's in another place. And so there's controversy about where the actual place is, but it's an interesting view of the levels at which Constantinople was willing to go, the amount of work that had to be done, manpower and resources and everything else to get this done.
Rome was brutal, but very genius.
Yeah.
It's incredible what the feats they could do. Everything we're using now are surgical instruments today.
Yeah.
If you're ever going to go to the Pompeii exhibit that's touring around the world, Rome, Pompeii, all this stuff, they find full sets of surgical tools. They are exactly the same as the ones that are used to this day. But they were made by Romans. Plumbing fixtures, back when come Hungary, the entire town's rubble, but they've excavated it, and everything in the plumbing remained perfect. So you got all this hot and cold running water sources. Every single home had hot and cold water.
To me, one of the most fascinating things they did was the way they built roads that are still standing today.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've been on a lot of those roads. You can still, when you're in Italy today, man, you get on some of this cobblestone. Some of that cobblestone goes back to Rome, and we with the sailboat, we encountered a lot of ancient sites, and we were actually pulled out of the water for repairs one time on an ancient Phoenician railway on the Isle of Ibiza. The old method of pulling a ship out of the water by putting a track down into the water. Vessels aligned over that track, a single rail, and then a jackass cranks a winch, or slaves, whatever he used at the power at the time, cranks this big winch. Something probably looks like the Conan movie when he's riding that mill around, and he's cranking around like that, and as it cranks, just cranking in the chain, and the vessel is slowly pulled out of the water from its bow, straight up onto the land, and as it comes out, they put supported blocks underneath it, build a framework underneath the vessel to support it while it's fully out of the water. And when you're done, you cut loose and it slides down the track while people are holding ropes on either side to guide the vessel in, So it's amazing what their technological skills were.
As a kid, traveling all these places, did you pick up on languages, or do you remember any of that?
Yeah, some of it. It's not now. It's so many years later. It's I did learn. We were stuck in Ibiza in the Balearic Islands, just inside from Gibraltar off Spain. I think Ibiza is maybe 90 miles or something, if I remember off the top of my head, more or less maybe, from the inner area of Barcelona and Alicante on the eastern coast of Mediterranean Spain. So we were trapped. We were rescued at sea after a very serious event, which the first time my family was almost killed at sea. And the vessel was almost lost in a bad storm off Algiers, Africa. And we were rescued by a British freighter, the Port of Plymouth, which was able to save our vessel. And they had to tow us because they've agreed to rescue us at sea. The thing is, if they're going to save your vessel, they have to, by international law, they have to take and put your vessel in tow. If they can't repair it, they will tow you to the closest ported harbor that can handle such repair.
Oh.
So they had to bypass their normal shipping route, this container ship named the City of Plymouth from Britain. It was a big container ship at sea that rescued us. That was a horrendous experience. But, you go onto that ship, they towed us all the way to Ibiza. And in Ibiza, we had to spend there just over a year waiting for our turn to get pulled out of the water. Now, Mick Jagger and all these big rock stars and movie stars and, it's Salvador Dali. Everybody has homes in Ibiza because it was a big party island. The discos there are legendary, and to this day, if you're into DJs and people doing that kind of music, dance music, you're not even considered a big name in the business unless you've headlined at Ibiza, where some of the clubs cost $300, $500 a person just to get in. And you can dance on top of sharks and walls with sharks swimming around you.
Wow.
Incredible discos like you wouldn't even believe. But we were stuck on that island, and the other downside of it was terrible plumbing. So that place stunk like you would not believe. But We got on that.
But you're kind of forced to immerse yourself in the culture.
As a kid there, being suddenly dropped into it,
Yeah.
not speaking Spanish, and so we didn't realize what was up. And I thought that I was learning to speak Spanish, but what I was learning to speak is as unique as the liquor they produce only on that island. And it's called Ibiza, so you have a liquor called Hierbas Ibicenca. If you can get hold of that, you definitely, if you like drinking, you want to have some of that. But it's really good. It's like a Southern Comfort, comparatively almost, except they put a unique stock of spices gathered from that island. And they put that into the barrel when they're making that liquor. And then when you put it in the bottle, they have to stock that spices in there. When you drink it, it's like really flavorful. But that language base is called Ibicencan. And it is a mix between the Mediterranean nations and cultures which visited that island.
Oh, yeah. So
you have the Moroccan
Portuguese,
influence, the African thing coming into there.
Italian,
and so Ibicencan is all sorts of stuff. And so it sounds Hispanic. It's a hodgepodge. But Ibicencan is, as soon as I got off the island, I was speaking a little survival.
Yeah.
Ibicencan as a kid.
Very Latin, very big Latin influence.
Big Latin influence.
Yeah.
And then when you start getting over to the other islands, as we sailed on beyond that and started going into Corsica and Sardinia and heading over toward Sicily and doing the Italian islands and all through the coast of Italy and heading over towards Greece and all that sailing, we were almost killed again and were rescued by the U.S. Navy after we left Ibiza. So, learning how to sail, let me tell you something. My dad might have built a beautiful sailing yacht, 80-foot catch, 43 metric tons. If you bought one today, it would cost you $2 million for sure to try and get on something like that. And that was my home, which in some ways is very spoiled and lavish, at least. Enough so that that's how we met the mafia in Italy and were employed by the mafia, and that's how we made our money for some time, working for the boss of the mafia in Sicily. That's a story in itself. But the amazing thing, man, talking about the politics.
So how do you get from a canoer to?
Well, how do you get from that's great that you just said that, man, because so I was about to back this up a little bit here. Because the boats, the canoe is the connection to the boats. But my father was a champion canoeist. Yeah. And so the climate after World War II, the Germans get defeated, thank God. Yeah. And as the Germans get defeated, in came the people that liberated Hungary from the Germans. And we all know what engaged in history. I'm sure some of the people listening right now heard the Cold War. The Cold War was basically just a territorial grab from the Eastern Front. The Russians were severely attacked by Hitler and lost a lot of Russian blood.
I think they said 11 million Russians died during World War II.
Huge amount.
It was more than any other country.
Stalingrad.
Yeah.
Was it Stalingrad, I think? It was like very famous. it's like defending the motherland. Yeah. My God, the female sniper. I can't remember her name, which was very famous.
They made a movie about her. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, but she's real. Yeah. But so the Russians pushed the Germans back from their side, and they advanced while Romania, I mentioned earlier, was important to the Germans. The access to that area, which is now Romania, because of the Ploiești oil refineries. And the Germans needed fuel to fuel their war machine, and that was their fuel source. And so Hitler controlled the Ploiești field, and the Allies were bombing Hungary severely and bombing Ploiești from Africa after they defeated Rommel with Patton. So they were able to gain that territory, and from Libya they were launching airstrikes over to Budapest and over to Ploiești.
What is that now today? It's not Budapest today, is it?
Budapest?
Yeah.
Budapest is still there.
Is it still considered Budapest?
Oh my God, yes. It's beautifully done. Hungary's its own nation, but only after they got away from the Russians. Yeah. Because what happens is at the end of World War II ends with the Russians, of course, pushing the Germans out, defeating them, and then the Russians decided to do what I think you can do legally, and that's how territory changed throughout history. If you're a nation and you get attacked by another nation, and they come into your territory, and there are wars ensuing, as the Germans did when they advanced and then went into Russia, The Russians now are attacking and pushing back the Germans, and Hitler's war machine starts falling down, and they're pushing him back, and advancing into territories that aren't even their country anymore as they're fighting actively against the German war machine. So they go all the way into Hungary, Yugoslavia, all these places, Poland, everything that was involved with the Germans taking by force, and everything that the Russians got, they did what is legal to do. And they decided, well, we were attacked, now we're going to keep it.
Restitution.
Well, they pushed them back. The aggressor was pushed all the way back. And whatever you're in, you push them back to that point like a game of football.
Yeah.
You know, get your yardage in, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's how, so the Russians come in, and that's when everything went bad for Hungary, because when the Russians came in, people don't understand politically, the Germans were allies of the Huns, and so they didn't treat the Huns poorly, per se. Now, the stories that I heard from my family about what the Russians did is completely different. The Russians, in comparison, if you're Russian descendant, you know, I don't want to offend you, but reality is reality. And a lot of people can talk about my own nation of origin too, Huns, because we were brutal killers. So, yeah, we were murderous thugs that raped and pillaged throughout Europe, and Christians said prayers, God save us from the arrows of the Huns, through much of Christian Europe for hundreds of years. So we know that that's a history, you know. So I'm not trying to put down Russians, but the truth of the matter is that the Russians came in, take over, make the Eastern Iron Curtain, the Cold War starts, and once you're inside that Iron Curtain, there's no such thing as freedom. It's stifling, like control. Not even religion is really permitted, because religion gives someone hope. And so they look down on everything like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's pretty sad. But while that happened in history, you know, my parents were kids during World War II, and my father, being a Hungarian Jew, was hidden by a sympathetic Catholic priest and disguised as an altar boy. Now, I went to church there one time as a young man with my mother, and my mother said, you know, this is the church where your father had to pretend he was an altar boy. My father took sacrament as a Jew, so he became an atheist that hated God. And I think that was his undoing. Mm-hmm. He never could understand how something so evil could come in and destroy an entire culture and an entire family and everyone they knew it existed, but it happened, even in Hungary. So he survives, and as a young man growing up, he is able to get into canoeing, and he becomes really an incredible champion. And that canoeing right there made him a star athlete, even in a communist country. But he was tired of it. But my mom, she experienced her end of it too, and she's the one that caused problems for our family, which ultimately led us to America long before I was born. And that is that my mother wrote a freedom manifesto against the KGB. In 1956.
Oh, wow. In
1956, before the Hungarian Revolution broke out, the Soviets occupy everywhere. And, you know, it's boot and rifle occupation. You're in line. And and waiting in line, too, if you want to get a loaf of bread or a pair of shoes. So toilet paper. My parents, you know what they did? Let me get this right. You know, it's amazing, because my parents, their first job together as a couple was smuggling. Not drugs, but it was equivalent, because if you were caught doing it, you'd be in big trouble. Hungary is, I'm trying to get this right. Yeah, in Hungary, they didn't have access to children's clothing, I think. During the occupation, there was such a shortage of children's clothing, you could make a lot of money with children's clothing in Budapest. But we had lots of, I think it was coffee. You know, I think it's coffee. I'm pretty sure it's coffee. That we had access to coffee. And I think the Russians are tea drinkers at the time. Lots of tea. But also liked coffee, but they didn't have it. So they would go and smuggle one up to Russia on the train, mm-hmm. and then suitcases filled. And then they'd sell it like hotcakes as soon as they got off the train, make a big amount of money, right there, immediately go and buy children's clothing everywhere they could, because they had an industry there supporting them. And from there, take it back to Budapest and sell it there and make huge profits. But smuggling it the whole way because you weren't allowed to do it, it's like, and so in that early time there, my mom made a big mistake and wrote a freedom manifesto demanding a different treatment, that we're Hungarians, we don't want this Soviet communist crap on us. And so my parents were arrested and interrogated, and an interrogation at that time in the Soviet Empire was not something small. You have a gulag you could be sent to.
Well, I'm sure there's no rules back then either. It's like, whatever we got to do.
In Budapest, there's a couple of walls still up to this day where you can go see where Russians and Germans were executing people by gunfire, putting you up against a wall. Mm-hmm. And you can look at that wall, and it's got thousands and thousands of pockmarked bullet holes, where people were executed right there in that one thing, right in the middle of town. You walk by it every day, people pointing their attention to it. But my mom, she was warned. Basically, they told her, Erzsébet, think about your husband, think about your family. You do something like this, we're willing to forgive you, but if something like this were to ever happen again, what about the future? Your husband's a famous star. You're throwing your life away. It was enough to scare the heck out of my father, too. So when the Hungarians at this time were getting really tired of being suffering like they were under the Russians, and so it was the Hungarians that led the first revolt against the Soviet Union. And so freedom fighters, starting with a few children that snagged the hand grenades off of a couple of Russian soldiers that were standing on the street and took and threw themselves bodily into a group of soldiers with a pulled pin off of a Russian grenade, started the revolution.
Wow.
Kids. And so then they took pots and pans and laid them in the street upside down so that the Russian tanks thought they were mines and had to stop. And that's how it ensued. And so for 3 days, Budapest was free from Soviet control. And during that 3-day revolution, my father decided, because they had just got back from a trip from smuggling from Russia, and they got back to Hungary, they go into prison, for what my mom does, and when they get out of prison, they go see a relative up in the mountains right there next to Budapest, overlooking the whole plains next to the city. And right up there is when the family first saw, after the 3-day revolution had started, and they were freed from prison. Because the second time they went to prison was because they decided they were going to escape with the money they'd made on the smuggling trip. And they tried to get over the border, but were captured because my father tripped a flare trap. And Russian soldiers with German shepherds came in right on them and captured them at the border. And the second time they were arrested wasn't for writing the political thing, but because their name was already in the books, I guess. Now they're in big trouble. So they were put into political prison. Now,
and he's supposed to be a big star at this point.
Yes, but now
so the world knows who he is.
Well, he's not gone on to the global field. He's like that. So much as like the world had a lot of things going on right there, and the press isn't getting in on this.
Yeah,
the press was paying more attention to a missile crisis that happened at the same time in the Middle East, and I think in the 1950s, I think it was a Middle Eastern something going on, or I don't know what the distraction was, but there was a very big political climate of tension between the Soviet Union, the United States, and other regions in the world, and so when the Huns took over Budapest, the freedom fighters, they captured the radio station. And when they did that, they broadcast, this is Hungarians, this is Hungary. We need the world's help. We're fighting against the Soviets. We want our freedom. Nobody dare make a move. And my parents are up on this mountaintop. That's some family's property next to their house. And in the distance, they could see the tank divisions lining up from the Russians.
Yeah.
And so the 3-day revolution was a bunch of diddly squat.
Yeah.
Because there comes divisions that were ready to
just wipe them out.
And that's exactly what happened. So my father immediately made the decision, seeing that ahead of the storm, the wave is going to crash, that tidal wave coming in on the beach. You know it's going to hit. And so they evacuate. And they start heading south. And they made it to the border. It was the 3-day run. You remember in The Lord of the Rings when they try and rescue the hobbits from the control of the orcs?
Yeah.
From Isengard? And, they went and run after him. That's when the Fellowship first split up. Frodo and Sam take the ring quest, and the others go back to pursue the other 2 hobbits and try and rescue them. Well, that was my family's running. Similar to that, run for freedom. My mother and father, with virtually nothing on their back, a little bit of money, make a move for the border of Yugoslavia. 3 days they're running to the point of exhaustion and just spent. My father is like a world-class athlete, and my mom's an athlete too, so they're not weak people. But after the third day, they come through the section of woods in the early part of the morning, and it's barely light outside, and there's fog laid out just like you see here in South Carolina on the fields. That heavy fog.
Like this morning.
Like this morning, perfectly.
Yeah.
Over the fields, you come through the trees, and in the distance, they see a farmhouse. In the earliest part of the light of dawn, starting to turn the skies blue and gray, lighting up. And through that fog, they see this house, and they approach the house, and suddenly a man comes out of the house with a shotgun and levels it at my father, and in Hungarian says to my father, "What the hell are you doing on my land?" And my father fell to his knees and started to weep. And he said to my mom, "I can't run anymore. It's 3 days, I'm exhausted. We can't go anywhere, and we haven't even made it out of Hungary." And the farmer lowered his shotgun and said, "Relax, Hungarian. This is Yugoslavia. You made it."
Cool.
They had made it across, and that's, see, like what I'm saying, when World War I ends, Hungary was severely punished.
Yeah.
Former lands that were Hungary
Mm-hmm.
were split apart and became other places as a punishment to the Austro-Hungarians for their part in the war, starting the war. So it's like they made it over the border, and it was that incident which allowed my parents to immigrate to this country. And I'm a big fan of immigration, which I think is being, in many ways, I think it's okay for me to say, it's bastardized.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our idea of immigration today, I think, is a scary thing because it's a beautiful country, and people that were born here, like myself, I think are sometimes guilty of not realizing how privileged we are in this country with all of our own mistakes that we've made as a nation, that we obviously have to inherit, even if we didn't do those sins.
Yeah.
We still have a great nation which has grown exponentially beyond any place in the world.
And it's still in the infant stages of its own
It's a very young nation. My
yeah.
God,
I know the world looks at us and goes, "God, these idiots are still trying to figure it out."
Yeah, so they can say all they want to with that, but these idiots figured out a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
That changed the world. So I can argue a lot of good things, and you can say some bad things too, and of course, that's what I'm admitting to. But my parents, they didn't get to just come to America. That's not how it works. They were political refugees who were going to be put to death as revolutionists, and they were freed from the political prison during the 3-day revolution. They were awaiting execution. My mother was probably raped in that prison by Russians. I know that she gave birth to my sister on a refugee camp, but she had contracted a disease called rubella. Rubella does not affect the mother during the pregnancy as it does the fetus, and the fetus will be born crippled and will not be able to survive. So the child was born, my sister, she was born and would not survive. What happened, it was because of that the United States at the time wouldn't allow my parents to immigrate to the United States because they would be bringing a crippled child with them. So they were denied it. I think that's the basis why they were denied immigrating here to the U.S., but they were staying on a refugee camp on a Yugoslavian island called Rab. I think it's R-A-A-B is the spelling of that.
So when they did the 3-day run, they ran with their daughter, with your sister?
No. My mother was just out of prison, so she probably didn't even know she was pregnant.
Okay, so she had okay.
So I suspect, and my mom's going to say no, that didn't happen. But my mom has also admitted to me at times that there are some very dark chapters about what happened to them in that point of time. The price that they paid for freedom.
Yeah.
It's like who couldn't be sympathetic to someone who just wants to live their life without having an oppressor breathe down your neck.
Right.
It's akin to slavery.
Oh yeah.
So the fact of the matter is that my parents, they make it over there, and the Yugoslavians, they don't want Hungarians all over there, similar to the way the Muslims were coming out of Syria and coming in mass to Hungary, and Hungary detained them. Hungary knows good and well what it means to have a huge influx of people from any one part of the world suddenly stomp onto your territory. They'll change the very demographic nature of your history.
They're doing that in France right now.
They're all over the world. We're seeing some stuff happen. But the fact of the matter is, when my parents, they were forced onto this island with all the Hungarians who had escaped, which were a good bit of Hungarians that escaped over to that part of the border into Yugoslavia. And they were put on this refugee camp, basically a prison, called Rob, an island. And there they awaited their fate, and they were trying to get immigration status as refugees, political refugees, to the United States. They were turned down. I think it was Australia that accepted my family, or New Zealand. But there was a woman that knew my mother from the camp and was sympathetic to my mother. She also knew that my mother was pregnant with rubella and was going to give birth to a crippled child. So she knew that the child was going to die, and there should not be no reason whatsoever why the U.S. would deny their immigration due to a child that's not going to be a burden upon the country, that's not going to even live.
Yeah.
So she had connections to an ambassador, to a senator or something, that woman. And she contacted, and they were able to actually put their case, argued for them by someone behind the lines on the American side, and said, you're denying this family for no reason. You need to help a lot of good people. The guy's a champion athlete, and he happens to have a child which is going to die in the process. And so they were accepted to the U.S., and my parents in 1957, I think, or 58, arrived in the United States. They were citizens before my brother was born. They settled down in Chicago, Illinois, and they had to learn American history, learn the language. My father insisted that my brother and I weren't even taught Hungarian when we were born, that we were going to be raised 100% as Americans. He even changed our family name because he wanted us to be American.
Yeah.
So, and we were raised as patriotic Americans. Chicago, Illinois, is where he got this dream to build a sailboat, live the American dream. And I tell you what, he became very successful here in the country. He was working as a professor. He was a very, very successful tool and die draftsman, mechanical engineer. And so he's very educated, very aggressive, about what he wants to get done. And so he became successful at a time in this country that, though turbulent in many ways, socially and politically, was a time where you could just make it. So I understand.
Chicago was a big boom. I mean,
a big
lot of
boom. But then again, there's also
revolution.
a lot of gang activity.
Oh yeah, Al Capone,
gangsters,
and
yeah. And so back then, I think the Chicago police were referred to as the Blue Angels with great sarcasm because they were so corrupt. And of course, you had Serpico in New York City.
My mom was born outside of that area in '54 in Joliet, which is where their big prison was.
Oh yeah, Joliet's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like her
family was from like Georgia and Alabama, where it was farm areas, and they wanted to have opportunities, so they moved to Chicago to try and get where the jobs were.
Yeah. And
they both went through the Depression as kids. Their parents had died when they were young, and to keep themselves out of orphanages and stuff like that, all of the kids band together and they all got jobs in factories in Chicago, because back then there was no child labor laws. So they all went to work there, and then they met each other up there working. My grandfather famously had stories about meeting Al Capone in person. He's got some stories about hiding bodies, and he didn't tell any of these stories until he got very senile and with dementia. And he starts telling these stories like it's like commonplace. He's like, "Oh, remember that time?" I was like, "Whoa, shh, stop talking, stop talking about this stuff, Papa." But he would say stuff randomly to me or my brother. It's like, this is some stuff that is really shocking. But he was like, "Yeah, this is how we made it." And he's like, because of that, I was able to eventually buy my first tractor, and we moved back home and bought some land, and I started my business doing, construction. But he's like, I had to do these favors for people.
Tooth and nail, man.
This is just how it was. Yeah, he's like, this is just how it was. It's that blue collar, whatever you got to do kind of mentality, But
my parents came into that too, and it's like they had this big dream of being free in America. It was like, as children, my mom witnessed as a child backing up into the history of it. It's like cowboys and Indians. The Hungarians were so fascinated with the Native American. They were Native American to the Hungarians at that time in World War II. Children like my mother, who spent much of the war in a farming village far south of Budapest near Andrea Balaton, a lake which is today one of the biggest vacation lakes in the region. And there, she happened to stay at this farm with a cousin in Andrea, which was a little farming community with its own church in a valley in a mountain range. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. I've been there. And one day, I was raised by my mom telling me stories about how she witnessed a dogfight in World War II as a child. My mom was sitting there one afternoon, I don't know what time of day, I'll say afternoon just for the story, but she's walking down the hill with some friends when suddenly they hear these engines scream and this fighter aircraft prop job flies right over her head, right over the ridge of the mountain, low altitude, German fighter. Guns blazing at that fighter, and what comes right behind it a second later, a big, beautiful silver and red aircraft. Shot that fighter down into the farmland. That pilot didn't make it, that German. And there's planes screaming over, and a dogfight ensues. There's aircraft everywhere, and my parents, my mother, not my father, but just my mom, and the other part of the village that she lived in are watching this dogfight take place right above their heads. Now, I was raised being told stories about that from a child. My mom told me about fighter planes, and my brother ends up joining the Air Force, I think in large part, just like he's 10 years older than me. And I remember, he shared my brother spent a lot of time building model aircraft. Mm-hmm. Big fan of model aircraft. World War II aviation. Had to be an influence from my parents telling stories. And my mom specifically witnessing that. And I never put two and two together until one day I'm sitting here in Florence watching, several years ago, was that one of the shows on the History Channel, mm-hmm. Dogfights. And they put this story out. I'm sitting there, I suddenly sit up in bed, I'm like, what? And it says, August 1944, Lake Balaton, Hungary. The Tuskegee Airmen are coming home from escorting bombers to attack the Ploiești fields, oil refineries. And on their way back, they're shortcutting to return to their bases in Italy. And they're flying over Lake Balaton on that summer day when they engaged in the biggest dogfight of their history as a squadron.
Wow.
And they're coming across the lake, 50 Tuskegee Airmen heading towards Italy. And they're engaged by an equal, if not more, amount of German fighters, and they meet over the lake, and they break off into groups of 10 and 12 fighters engaging each other with their wingmen in tow. And my mother witnessed the Tuskegee Airmen dogfight on that day, and witnessed a Tuskegee Airman take his kill at that dogfight. I still don't know who that is, but when I saw that, I was unbelievable, and so I excitedly went and got my mom up. I started recording that thing, and I got my mom up because she just moved over here for other reasons to join me from Los Angeles at the time. And I think this was probably around 2000, 1999, 2000 I think is when my mom came over here, because of what I was getting involved with there. But she wakes up, and I said, Mom, I got something to show you. And I got to see something which very few times you get to see with people. It's fortunate when you do. It's like being a puppeteer in life. It's like occasionally you put something dangled like bait in front of a fish. And so there my mom sits down, and I put this thing on the television, and the guy introduces once again. He's like, okay, it's on the DVR is what it was. And I think that's how I got that. I was recording episodes of Dogfight. So I play it for my mom, and I said, look at this. She watches it, she hears that. And she looks at what's happening, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She knew exactly what I was talking about. And she looked at me and she said, do you remember the story? And I said, of course I do, Mom. Why do you just woke you up at 2 in the morning, to go see this, Yeah. But that's exactly. So, it's like, it's really neat. The circles, life is, I found, at least it's worked that way with my family. It's worked that way with me, time and time again. These big circles. You do these incredible things that take you far from home, and it circles back around to your initial starting point. And somewhere along that circle, you start touching other people, other places, but significant things happen. things which are incredible, the stuff that dreams are made of.
Yeah.
I've had so many circles happen in my life which are they are nothing short of like saying miraculous as a definition. How could someone experience what I experienced? I don't know how to write a book. There's so much for me to try and put into words about things that I've seen that were truly incredible at a time when the world's gone through lots of changes and growing up in it. And then ending up here in South Carolina, growing up on the sailboat, traveling around the world for years and years as part of a global community. I was raised that way to understand that, I'm a proud American. Our sailboat has an American flag on it. And now we're criminals because we work for the mafia. And that's a pretty funny thing, going back to Italy, but we really did.
Yeah.
It's like I used to be right next to the boss all the time. I played with this kid. It's like, and we had a language barrier because I had no idea of Italian. This kid didn't speak English, so we were doing a lot of.
Did you at the time understand the weight of the situation?
The what?
The weight of the situation?
Of the mafia?
Yeah.
I didn't comprehend what the mafia was. I didn't really know what the mafia was.
All you know it was your dad had a job and you were just hanging out.
You know what? I'm going to skip to that because let's get that out because that's if I can focus. Sorry to your listening audience here, whoever's listening.
Now, right now they're going, holy crap!
There's a lot of chaos here, and it's like maybe one day I'll be able to, if anyone has a question or something, maybe I'll be able to explain in depth about that. But the story of how I went to Pompeii is involving the mafia. And so we had just arrived after being rescued the second time at sea by a by the U.S. Navy, DD-978 Bruins class destroyer, the USS Stump. Rescued my family at sea from death. We were without water for 3 days in the summer with no wind, no engine, no power, no way to call for help. And we were dehydrating and coming close to our room when the U.S. Navy came across us and saved the day. So we get resupplied and we make it towards Italy. And when we arrived in Palermo, Sicily, we docked Escapade, which was a gorgeous sailboat. Electric blue. She was stunning. She was a gorgeous boat. And she commanded attention. Whenever she went anywhere, man, it was like looking at a sleek sailing yacht. People noticed her. She got an American flag hanging off her stern, and on the back of the deck house, in the rear of the vessel, it said, "Our Escapade, Chicago, Illinois, USA." That's where she was built, launched, and registered to. So when the vessel was built there, and it has that name on the back of it, there we are at this dock in Palermo, this pier, right up at the seawall in the harbor, when a dark-colored sedan pulls up on the walkway, like a big giant sidewalk next to the pier, made out of stone. And it comes up there, and these two guys in suits get out. The two guys in suits walk up, and they ask to speak to the captain of the vessel. Because they see this American flag, and they see Chicago, Illinois written on the stern. Is what it was all about. Mm-hmm. My dad comes up, on deck, and he's like, "How can I help you?" And they said, "Well, what family are you with? You see your boat here, from Chicago." So who are you? He said, "My father." He must have known what was going on right off the bat, because what he said, "Oh, we're just coming back to see the old country. We're just having fun. And it's nothing, we're nobody." Mm-hmm. Well, we left Palermo and started going through some other ports, heading towards Naples. By the time we made it to Naples, over a few months period, we were engaged by the same vehicle and the same men again and again, trying to gain information about us. Until when we got to Naples, those two men, they came with a different thing. They said, "Hey, Capitan, our boss would like to meet you. He would like to invite you and your family to his estate." And he gave my father map coordinates for a harbor which turned out to have a castle villa on top of this beautiful mountain right there in the harbor.
And this is all pre-internet, so they're probably doing some research to find out who your dad is. And
no, they don't even know who he is.
It's hard to do that kind of research.
But
who the heck is this guy even connected to?
Yeah, well, it's just Chicago, Illinois. It's just a mafia.
Yeah.
It's
phones were around. You can make phone calls and ask, but everybody there would be like, "Yeah, I don't really know."
It's like this mystery person.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they wanted the boat.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to steal it from us.
Right. It's opportunity.
But it's an opportunity for a higher reason than we thought possible, and we never knew what it would turn out to be great, because we weren't smuggling drugs and we weren't killing people and we weren't burying bodies at sea. What happened was this guy invites my brother had already left the boat sometime earlier in Ibiza and returned when he turned 18 to the U.S. where he joins the Air Force, and it's just me and my father and mother, the three of us doing the rest of the adventures together, and then just me and my dad. But by that time, it was the three of us, and we get to Naples, and this people come back up, and they invite us. My boss wants to meet you, and your family. We'd like to invite you as his guest to his home. It's a very great privilege, blah, 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 whatever they were saying it, like I'm trying to sound all Guido or something, I don't know. But it's like they make it over there, and we are given map coordinates, to where to go to on a chart, and it's like, and we sail there. When we arrive, you're coming up into this natural bay harbor on a volcanic beach, black sand, and a lot of Italian beaches, either red sand, gray sand, black sand, depending upon what volcano. This one happened to be Vesuvius, which created the sands on this beach. And but I had no idea of that. I didn't even know what Pompeii was at that point in my life, really. But I might have, but it just wasn't that big a deal for me. At any rate, we arrive at this place as guests, and what they do is we anchored the vessel underneath this beautiful mansion, which is a former castle or something, on top of this several hundred, like 300 or 400 yard high rock peak right there. And it's like this pinnacle of a castle villa, and they have this winding road that would reach the top difficultly as you drive up there slowly. Mm-hmm. So it's defendable. And then you also have, these guys everywhere with machine guns in suits. Everyone, in fact, that I saw, my mom and dad were wearing what sailors wear, which is generally like if you went on a camping trip and you only brought 3 changes of clothing, you're going to wear those things over and over and over again as you wash them by hand, and you just look salty. And I'll tell you what, you're like, if anyone's seen the movie The Boat, Das Boot, mm-hmm. the way those German soldiers looked when they got off that submarine and they stepped onto that yacht that was resupplying them secretly in Spain, and they were all had a lavish banquet laid out for them, and they were all dressed in suits, and these guys come off the ship and they've never had a shower in a month. Well, we weren't that way. We had showers, but the fact of the matter was that we just looked salty. We looked like we were rough cut. Mm-hmm. Wearing shorts, I was barefoot. My mom wore flip-flops. My dad wore flip-flops, t-shirt, shorts. T-shirt, shorts. I don't think I even wore a shirt when I went up to his house. And my mom, same way dressed, just normally a female. She's not bare, but she's just dressed like you're living on a sailboat sailing, And when we get up there, there's hundreds of people. There's a party in the daylight, and everyone's wearing formal clothing, except for one man and his son and his wife, who were dressed completely casual. And it became obvious that it was his place. Everyone there was like, seriously, formally dressed.
So what did they want y'all to move?
What they wanted us to move was him.
Really?
It's amazing. The guy, because of his position there, had a difficult time going on vacation.
Oh.
Right there in Italy, and tending to his affairs and feeling safe. So what I ended up doing is he ended up hiring our vessel like a charter to be his personal vacation tour bus along the coast of Italy and the Italian islands, while we were escorted by 2 cigarettes with machine guns mounted on their decks.
Cigarettes are other ships.
No, cigarettes are. Remember that show Miami Vice?
Yeah, gunboats. Yeah.
Well, it's not a gunboat.
They're racing boats, right?
It's those speedboats that you see that are like 80 to 100 feet long with like 3 or 4 inline engines, gas engines, and they go really fast, and you see brightly colored paints and stuff. And Miami Vice has at the beginning.
Security's walking or
Kojak.
cruising around.
Telly Savalas?
Yeah.
He had a yellow cigarette down. I remember in Florida when I was a kid. I saw it one time on the Intercoastal Waterway. Yeah. A yellow one that said Kojak down the side of it. Because he was a big Kojak star. But so we're there, and these 2, and we take these people on trip, and boy, what we got is a tour of Italy.
Oh yeah.
He brought his wife did the cooking. They brought their own food supplies to make sure he wasn't poisoned.
Yeah.
They took our family. We were their guests. They were our guests on board the vessel. We were paid very well, and it financed my family's life to continue doing that without having to be answering to anyone else financially. And so we get to see incredible things, old Nazi gun emplacements on the coast of Italy that are still there at the time. You know, we swam to it from where we dropped anchor. He said, I got something to show you. You want to see a gun? You know, I was like, go in there, and there's a big 88 guarding the Strait of Medina.
Wow.
You know, on this rock shelf carved into a cavern with this big swastika carved in stone right into the wall of the cave behind the gun.
How many years did that last?
I don't know if it's still there or not.
No, I mean being his escort. How long did that go on?
But being his escort, I don't know, we took some weeks.
Yeah.
Of, just here and there, and it was like taking them, it's like we went island hopping off to the coast of Italy, island hopping to the Ioli Islands, which are Lipari, Stromboli, Vulcano, and that was, all those places were, you got Capri, it's like all these places were incredible adventures, it's just like a child and going to that, but the neat thing was sailing around on a boat with guys and machine guns all around you like you're somebody important.
Yeah.
One of the nights, probably the scariest thing that I ever remember about the mafia dude and really settled in what these people are about, that there was like criminal, was that, at sea, there's no such thing as a ship with no lights on. At night, ship just goes in blacked out. It's like,
because you're worried about crashing into each other, and
there's a lot of reasons that you use, and it's all about crashing and other vessels having a thing to know where you are and what direction you're headed by your navigational lights.
If you don't have lights on, you're seen as a pirate.
You're something's wrong.
Something's up.
Right, and you're in danger. So one night we're sailing, and we were told where to sail. We were told what heading to sail to after we left one of the places we had visited with his family. And we sail out, and it's in the dark, and then suddenly, because it was a dark ship, there was this big freighter that we suddenly see out of nowhere. It wasn't lit up, it was just waiting at anchor. And he was greeted by one of the cigarettes who came and motored up to our vessel, which was a very rare event. They didn't disturb us.
Yeah.
They just made sure no one came near our sailboat as they hung back several hundred yards. And so it's like one of the vessels comes up and he gets on there and they embark over this freighter in the dark that we suddenly see towering over us 100 yards away from where we dropped anchor, a big ship sitting in darkness. That just doesn't happen, not a single light on board. And so
I'm sure for your dad this had to be like really troubling.
Well, no, I think I think my dad was the kind of player, man, that
he was just kind of digging it.
He must have. I mean, he didn't. If he was annoyed, we had our own weapons on board. I mean, SFA was an armed vessel.
But I'm sure, like, he's thinking probably there was a benefit in the fact that money's not a problem.
And I'm sure he liked
it's kind of a cool deal to be hanging with somebody who's a big shot.
Yeah.
But also there's the thing
had to be.
I got my wife and kid here too, so.
But you're guaranteed that, hey, we just want to, this is a great opportunity for my family. And I can see how the mob guy would have approached him.
Yeah.
And said, look, this is an opportunity for me to be able to have some time off with my family, something in my line of work that I don't really get to do without having to worry about stuff.
But think about if you were him. After a couple of weeks, you're thinking, okay, there's got to be a way out of this. How do we get out of this? When you think he's probably...
It could have been possible. As a child, I don't think I was aware of it. Being a young kid, it's like I really wasn't aware of it. 10 years old, 11 years old, something like that.
There's a joke about, not to derail this, but there's a joke about Hitler, about, Hitler had to have a best friend who's, just happened to be his best friend who's,
I think it was that woman.
There's like the guy, like, just imagine if Hitler had some dude he likes to hang out with, maybe, grill on the weekends or whatever, and he's like, I'll get involved in this, and he's like, you're gonna what? He's like, you kind of still want to be friends with him, but at the same time, you're like, maybe I need to find a way out of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity there from that perspective because it would be a fear factor.
Yeah.
I'm sure that had to weigh in too. I'm sure that my dad didn't go in with the confidence, thinking that, here you are with your yacht and suddenly you're amongst the mafia, which you really have no pull over.
Yeah.
But you were flapping your lips when you first got to Italy and said, we're just coming back to the old.
But he wasn't a dumb guy. You're talking about all the stuff your dad had done. And
he was smart, but the thing is, he was arrogantly smart sometimes too, and it was his peril.
Yeah.
Which lashed out at us many times through our travels.
Right.
And caused us great difficulties.
So it's hereditary.
So obviously so. It's like, yeah, I do look like my dad.
It's nurture versus nature, and
it's like
a little bit
my
of both.
son looks like me, and my daughter looks like me, except she's beautiful. But the fact of the matter is that so we met the mafia like that, and it was a very privileged way to meet them. And then towards the end of our vacation, I remember Pompeii. The mafia boss asked me, he said, "So Ronnie," he calls me Ronnie, "what would you like to do here in Italy more than anything? What would you like to see? I'd like to show you whatever you'd like to see." And so I said, by that time, Pompeii was the thing. By that time, somehow the conversation had turned.
How old were you about then?
I think I was about 11, 10, almost 11 years old, maybe.
Okay.
Around 11. And I think that would have been right. Probably around 1980, right after 1980, maybe the beginning of 1981 when this transpired. We were rescued by the USS Dump in 1980 on her shakedown Mediterranean voyage. She captured a Soviet submarine underneath us that was hiding. That's what the incredible bonus was about our rescue at sea.
Holy crap.
Yeah, the Cold War was constantly the U.S. Navy chasing Russian subs. Wherever they encountered them in the world, they would hound them. The Russians had a new weapon, a silent sub, that was chased around in the Mediterranean in 1980 by this destroyer, the USS Stump, that could do really fast speeds, and it tracked Russian submarine. It was a new sonar contact, a signature they hadn't heard before. Mm-hmm. But they lost that sub. During that day when we were rescued, those days, occasionally you would see the tower of the mast of this Navy ship on the horizon, and it would disappear over the horizon. How the world was ever perceived as being flat, for any of you flat earthers, is a joke. Because when you're at sea and you get away from land, and the second you have a real pair of binoculars in your hand and you're looking for the horizon, it's amazing that nothing is flat. And you can even see whatever target you're advancing upon on the horizon at night slowly materialize over the curve of the earth as it reveals itself. Meaning the top of the bridge, as it's heading toward you, you'll see the running light on the top of that mast, 250 feet in the air maybe. You'll see that first. And then 15 minutes later, you see another light underneath that show up. And then you can start identifying what kind of a ship it is you see over there.
I can't imagine because it's so different than my life. And I'm sure a lot of people listening right now are like, holy crap, what a different life. Just to put it in perspective, I think at around 11 years old was when Chicken McNuggets became invented for me. So for me, my big claim to fame at 11 years old was I got really fat that year because my mom bought the Stouffer's chicken nuggets that you could cook in the little toaster oven, and so we got illegal cable, and I would watch illegal cable and eat chicken nuggets at home until I would gorge myself, and I used to be called they used to call me Bird because I used to eat, they said, as little as a bird. My mom actually took me to the doctor because she was concerned that I wasn't eating enough to stay alive. And he's like, "He looks fine. He'll be fine. He'll grow into it." And chicken nuggets got invented, and suddenly I was wearing husky pants. So totally different life, right? Totally different life. A lot of people right now are listening to this and thinking, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact of, okay, we're going to be on this ship and we're going to travel across this ocean that way.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There was a good side to it also. There's another bonus was I never had to cut grass.
Yeah.
I never knew what a lawnmower was, I don't think.
Your tours were a little different. They're all ship related.
Yeah, just really hard work.
Yeah.
It's like totally different. Can you imagine, what the difference is? I think the biggest difference about growing up the way I did traveling is that imagine going out on a camper trip. You go from campground to campground with a what do you call them, RV? Yeah. So if you were to go with a 50-foot RV, they're only so wide, maybe 15, 16 feet, living space inside.
Right.
Escapade was 15 feet at its widest point. She was a double ender, like a canoe. Imagine that. Like a racing canoe. She was designed that way. Mm. And so she loses territory, real estate, really quick from the front to the back, and it gets wide in the middle towards the stern. It gets the widest point, which was 15 feet. So when we were doing that, it's like going in an RV. And imagine going in an RV and you're going to go from here, you want to drive all the way down historic Route 66 from Chicago, Illinois, all the way down to the Santa Monica Pier where Route 66 ends. Mm-hmm. Drive out to the edge of the pier and walk out from your car and go right on the pier. And that's Route 66 right there. So if you were to do that, now imagine you're not able to get out of your RV.
You're stuck.
during the whole trip.
And for a
If
large
you're sailing while you're at
for a
sea,
large part of your journey,
you
your
don't even
scenery
see it.
is
You don't even
just water.
see it. It's like you're right.
Yeah.
And so it's incredible. And you see, and believe me, what's really neat is that people think that the water would get boring. Let me tell you, it's a incredible jungle. The ocean. It's so teeming with life. There's so many things to see, day and night. The things I've seen on sea, and then you can also go to space when you're sailing. People don't realize that. It's probably
But once there's no light and all you see is the stars.
the only place you can ever experience what it's like to be a person standing in the middle of a three-dimensional galaxy of stars was on our maiden voyage when I was a really young child. We were halfway between Bermuda and the Azores, heading across to Europe. And after a week out of Bermuda, we're out in the North Atlantic en route to Horta-Fayel, one of the Azorian Islands, and we're still a week and a half or more away from that. And no wind one night. No wind. It was, I think, a summer night, or it was comfortable. It wasn't really cold or nothing, but it's not a cloud in the sky, not a breath of wind. The entire Milky Way and everything just in its glory over you. Every single star, and in fact, you can see at that period of time satellites with your naked eye.
Yeah.
When you're out there, there's
Well,
no
Sputnik
light
was
source.
visible apparently by the
No
naked eye.
light source.
Yeah.
And you see, all you have to do is look at one heavenly body and fixate on it for a second, and suddenly your peripheral vision picks out, peripheral vision being really important on boats. You start developing that. Because if you look at something, you don't see it, a source of light.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look 2 inches from the horizon to the left or right of it, then your peripheral vision will acknowledge the light, and then you can fixate on that light source, what it was you saw from the side. But when you're looking up to heavens, you look at a star, and it's your peripheral vision that'll suddenly reveal satellites. Heavenly bodies that aren't still, they're just a shining reflection of light going across in one direction across your field of vision, and then you'll see another one in an intersect course at a different altitude or something farther away, dimmer. You see one that's brighter, and it's just one's reflecting off the sun. They're not making their own natural light source, so they're just reflecting whatever hitting them.
Yeah.
But we would see that, and then that night, I'll never forget it. Not a breath of wind, and the Atlantic Ocean became flat like glass. There was not a sound. All of our sails were hanging limp. And I was laying on top of the deck house, looking sideways at the horizon when I suddenly realized what I was looking at. And so I sat up, and I saw every single star in the heavens reflecting on the water without so much as a ripple. It was like we were on glass. And I remember I said to my brother, I said, wow, this is what it means to be an astronaut. This is what it's like to go to space.
Mm.
And for all intents and purposes, man, that was the closest I would ever make in my life to going there. But it was a very similar experience, without a doubt, because you could not see the horizon. It was just a dark globe.
I'm talking to my kids about that when we took a trip up to New York, and we did the Staten Island tour where they walk you through the rites of people coming to America would go through. They would have to be brought in and asked about their history, their health. They look at their health, and they send people back and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, can you imagine coming to the country because you left everything behind somewhere else because you're like, it's so bad here, I got to take my chance on this boat. And you just head out in the ocean and hope that this captain's going to get you there at some point. Sometimes they didn't make it, but you hope that this is going to turn into something. Then you show up at this land that you may be turned around from just because maybe you have pink eye or something like that. I mean, you hear these stories about stuff that happened, and it's like, holy crap. But every time they had to go, we're just going to get on the ship and see what happens.
Well,
and hope for the best, because it's got to be better than what we're leaving.
Yeah, you know what? It's like my parents went out with that big dream. My dad did. But you know what?
But your dad was, that was your dad's life.
But there's another side story to the whole thing when we went on the trip. We became celebrities in our own right as a family because my dad built that sailboat. It was a big deal. And by the time we made it down the Mississippi River from Chicago through the locks into the Mississippi River, down into the Gulf of Mexico, and then around Florida over to Miami land, so the sailboat could await the one thing my father didn't build, which was her masts. Those were built by a company in New Zealand, custom for our boat. And the masts had to be constructed and shipped over to the U.S. and then erected on the sailboat. That's when she became a sailboat. But when we did that, by living in Florida for that last bit of time before we set to sea as a green sailing family to go see the world, we caught the eye somehow of a movie company that wanted to make a film with my family. So they actually started a film production company called Seafest Films. And Seafest Films was going to send a camera crew with my family to sail around the world to do the story of my family. Basically, my parents escaping Hungary, coming here with nothing, and then living the American dream, only to take the American dream as your definition of it, and design and build your own sailboat from the drafting table up to the finished product and sail it around the world. So it's like we were going to do that. The movie crew goes with us and a producer. And we left Miami land on the 4th of July. When we first did our shakedown cruise, it was the 4th of July. I don't recollect exactly when it was in the 70s. But mid-70s, right after Star Wars, I think, something. But
Star Wars was 77.
Yeah, so probably like 78 or something. But 78, 79, when we sail out, it's like to go around and see the world. And when we did that, we left on the 4th of July, and we were sailing away from the U.S. and the coast of Florida. And by the time night comes, because we left in the morning, by the time night comes, Florida's still over there, basically on the horizon. We're just over it, and you see the fireworks show. The Miami land fireworks just all up the coast of Florida. And so we sail away, 4th of July bash, sailing away like that, which was a really neat thing to see at sea. All the fireworks blowing
With the film
off,
crew?
Huh?
With the film crew?
Yeah, we got film crew with us. But the movie was never to happen for a different reason, because my father was also an alien. He was a very dark side. I don't know what happened to him. It's like he was abused, not by his father, but by his mother, who's the person who abused him. And she messed my dad up. My dad was a horror story in his own right. There's a very dark side of all the trip, which I haven't even mentioned yet. But in context, it's an interesting point to introduce it here, because we had a film crew with us. Didn't even know I was going to have a movie made about me. We all had T-shirts that were embroidered, given to us, and silkscreen Seafest Films. It looked like Seafest written right here, and the F in Seafest was used as films going down. They had already had all this production stuff designed, as how they were going to market the film, and that was a production shirt for family crew members, and the camera crew and all those people that were working on the film. So they go with us to the maiden voyage from Miami to Bermuda, and the most incredible thing happened. We're 3 days out, and now you no longer see land. It's long gone, and you're not even seeing the light from land. When at nighttime, we witnessed a rocket launching from Canaveral.
Really?
The rocket launched off. Yeah, I have to talk to my mom sometime. She really put some contradiction, so to speak, to some of the ways I tell the story, because she's getting old. Yeah. And her mind is in some ways, she remembers a lot of things, but we have some fundamental disagreements about the same chain of events. The same things happen, but how they happen and the reasons why some of them happen, we might differ about sometimes because of our perspective. And she's in her 80s now, mid-80s.
Well, everybody's memory and perspectives change. I mean,
but what happens is rocket launches.
Yeah.
We see this blister of light, way in the distance, far away. It's like you're not hearing it. You just seeing this flicker of thin light, bright like a candle, shooting up into the heavens. It was obvious what it was. We're all excitedly on the deck of the boat, in the cockpit, looking at this rocket launch from our stern off the coast of what's obviously Canaveral, where it launched from, as we're heading north by northeast towards Bermuda, which is off the Carolinas coast, out in the Atlantic there.
Yeah.
So as we're heading that way, suddenly that rocket gets up into, I guess, the stratosphere or whatever, or the first booster separated, and big explosion of light, and then you see the booster separate from this, and the flames continuing, but there's this other ball of fire that gets dimmer and dimmer, but stays on fire, and starts coming back to Earth. The most incredible thing, and what are the odds of this? We started getting a little bit nervous because, believe it or not, Josh, the booster section came to us. Instead of getting lighter and lighter and fading out, a ball of fire got brighter and brighter and brighter until it became evident that this thing is coming towards us. And so imagine going on your maiden voyage.
We're cursed.
That's pretty much is what I kind of worried about there in hindsight. I was thinking, man, with the things that happened to us, maybe we were in some ways.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think we were in some ways bad luck. Because of my father, I blame him. For what it was his stuff that he did that destroyed the family. And got us a lot of problems. And his arrogance as a sailor, wannabe sailor, taking a family out to sea with a vessel that he built.
What could go wrong?
Well, a lot can go wrong when you don't have a lifeboat.
Yeah.
Now, who the heck goes out for an oceanic crossing without a lifeboat?
It looked good on paper,
I mean, a brilliant person can make the most dim-witted of mistakes.
I'm sure he's drawing it all up.
Not having a lifeboat
nothing could go wrong. We'll be fine.
I could think of a lot of times that a lifeboat would have really, really helped us out.
Yeah.
But it's like this rocket is coming, the booster section is coming back down towards us. And it looked like we were going to possibly be struck. It looked real serious, like we were going to meet our fate to a booster from whatever rocket was launched. And it came down, and it was only as it was coming down towards us, eventually you signed a sigh of relief because you could notice that its trajectory was going to not come straight on us, but maybe just hit a few feet off to the side of the boat. Well, that few feet turned out to be maybe 100 yards, 150 yards. Now you think from a low orbit to your sailboat on the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, a minuscule speck that they can't see.
Yeah.
And if you were in the space station, if you were using a telescope, you might be able to see a sailboat on the surface if the weather permitted, but you sure as heck aren't going to see it.
That's the crazy thing. When you watch those videos of the space shuttle taking off and all the debris falling, you're like, where's it falling?
Occasionally, I'd imagine some of it has to hit something.
Yeah.
But that's if some people would argue it like this, Josh. If you believe in God, you can say, live your life within reason, live it without fear, under the belief that God's got my back. I'm living in faith in the Lord. Whatever. My time is my time to go. Some people have that thought. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm getting at. So it's like it wasn't our time to go. This booster ball of fire. It's coming down, lighting up the sky around us, dimly, not too bright. Bright enough that you saw it the whole time in the clear sky. And when it got down towards us and we realized it's not going to hit us, when it finally hit the ocean off to our side, something was sputtered out with a big cloud of steam rising out of the ocean right there where it first hit the water. And
how much debris is in the ocean from stuff like that?
Oh, you come across objects you would not believe. Outside of major ports and stuff all around the world, there are these giant channel markers. There's pieces of industrial equipment that belong to mines. There's pieces of ships. There's occasionally...
I've seen a lot of ship debris at various times being around lifeboats and
we found
actual ships.
We found a lifeboat one time.
We've seen ships left abandoned that end up as debris on coastlines and stuff like that. There's lots of stuff, man. One of the most dangerous things you can see. Charleston, there's a bunch of ships there that were left, and they end up eventually being crashed up against the shore because for whatever.
Well, they probably ran aground or something. They're probably
some of them are just anchored and left.
Oh, really?
And nobody claims them. Nobody wants to claim them for whatever reason.
Then you could probably, I would say, just by my experience at sea and knowing how people are, because they don't just let you anchor anywhere and whatnot. You probably have some ships. Now, a ship would prefer in all times. A ship doesn't want to be at land during a big storm. If you're in a vessel, if you're maritime, if you are in a huge storm, you do not want to be in a harbor necessarily, unless it's a very
because the water's moving and you're going to get slapped up against things.
You want to be out far from the land, so there's no chance of being crashed on the bottom. As a wave comes by and you hit the bottom with your keel, or pushed into the wall, anchor breaks, hold.
Well, the thing that happened in Tokyo with the
that tsunami?
With the tsunami, where they show how the land is fixed.
Rises up.
So the water, when it surges,
and then the boat's coming over the seawall and
everything
the road.
moves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Suddenly your parking garage just inserted a freighter.
Of course, there's also the terrifying thought of being like the ship in the Cape Fear movie. Is it Cape Fear? No, the Perfect Storm.
Perfect Storm. No, that's a different story.
That's a terrifying situation when there's like 50-foot, 60-foot waves.
I cannot watch that movie. I have PTSD.
Yeah.
If I see that film, it will.
So y'all been through some waves like that, where it's just?
I've been in 70-foot seas. We went vertical, and the vessel almost capsized completely. We were thrown on our side. The masts were in the water, going underwater, and we were gone. Water was coming in. That's a total story in its own right too. But the deal is, man, as you go up in a wave like that, we're trying to pull sail down. You have a jib in the front of the vessel. Your biggest sail that you carry is a jib. Mm-hmm. That's in the front. Big pull force on a catch, off the main mast to the bowsprit. Big triangle sail.
I got to ride on a sailing ship out of Portland, Maine.
Sailing ship. What kind of vessel was it?
I don't.
A square rigger. When you say a ship,
I don't remember. It was a wooden sailboat.
They can have like a trapezoid sail like this.
One of my dad's wives was somehow, I think, hooked up with the Sheridan Hotel group, and they had commissioned a boat as part of an outrigger group that was going to do.
How big was the boat, do you think?
70, 80 feet.
Oh, yeah, it's a small wooden sloop or a schooner,
I think it was a schooner. We were on top, and, as for my first time ever being on a sailboat, I think I was a teenager at the time, maybe 13 or so, and, we just hung on as tight as we could, and they would bring out the sails, and I don't know any of the terms or anything, but we hauled ass in the water, and I was thinking, the whole time I'm grabbing on this thing, I'm thinking, oh, this is the part where I die. Oh, how about that? I just came along for this fun little tour we're going to do, and now we're going to die, because the ship is completely this way, and we're hanging with
you're showing an angle, you're tacking.
Yeah, we're just hanging on with holding on these ropes with our hands, and I'm completely off the ship. I mean, just my body weight holding on to these ropes, and I'm thinking, oh, this is part where we die. Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
This is great.
Let me tell you something, man. When you're in a boat,
it's terrifying.
Remember I said what it's like psychologically on a person when you're sailing, like the RV comparison. Now, you can't get out of the RV, and there's really nothing to see except the interior and what you're seeing on the horizon, which is exciting and a lot of work. You don't get to sleep more than 30, 45 minutes usually at a time on a small crew, because the wind direction changes. You have to tack. You might see a ship which is on the intersect course. The weather changes. Whatever happens, you're always having to wake up the crew to help change sail configuration on deck while the helmsman, you're by yourself on the helm. You're not going to do that on a big boat. You have to hold the wheel. We didn't have autopilot. Mm-hmm. So you're holding the helm. You're going to hold the helm. And when you start looking at your compass and the wind is changing direction, if you want to stay on course, you have to adjust sails. Some of them you can do from the cockpit, but if the wind speed changes, you might have to take some sail area down. I was on helm duty on that such trip and had to do that one time. We ended up in 70-foot seas. The daytime turned to night. The only light was lightning flashes. Terrifying. But there you are trying to pull the biggest sail you have on there because the wind is so strong. My dad didn't want to reef the sails. Reefing is shortening their kite length, bringing down most of the sails so you have less surface area taking wind, and that way it's safer for the boat. Mm-hmm. Instead, he had to leave that full sail configuration up, and we got caught in a bad gale, bad storm. Go in there, 70-foot seas form, turns dark as night from like 2 in the afternoon. Just black. Can't see anything except for lightning flashes. And me and my dad are on deck, and my mom's trying to hold escapade into the wind, go up a wave. Going up a wave, and while we're going up, by hand, we are desperately trying to pull the sail down while we're going up. Because you're standing on the bowsprit of the vessel, and you have that gravity holding you to the bowsprit as you're going up. Because when you get to the top of the wave, it's all over with. You go over the top of the wave, and we would drop like a roller coaster falling out.
I'm sure as you're going down, you're seeing the next wave come towards you.
Yes, and so what you do is you let go of the sail and you grab the rail and the cables on you next to you on the bowsprit, and you see the bottom of that wave. So the lightning flashes, and you see this. You know it's coming, and the bowsprit would go into the water and go underwater and and we would suddenly have to hold our breath and hold on with.
Because it's like a bobber at that point, basically.
The boat comes out quick.
Yeah.
But that first initial touch on the other thing there before that happens, man, and it starts lifting again.
Yeah.
And you start immediately as you're gasping for air from where you held your breath,
Trying to pull
sail down. And let me tell you, my father and I went through that. Boy, was I angry at him at that point.
Oh, I bet.
Because I had just gone to sleep, and I warned him that I woke him up and said, look, my shift is off. And I was exhausted. I said, my shift is over with. I need to get some sleep. And so I hit a buzzer, which went to his cabin, the captain's cabin there, and buzzed him to wake up him and my mom and get him up on deck so I could be relieved. And I said, by the way, there's a storm on the horizon. Before I go to sleep, we need to reef the sails. Black smudge. Otherwise, nice sailing day. And he said, no, that's nothing. It's just a squall. Well, that thing turned day into night and was one of the most vicious storms, storm savage as I could ever imagine. So it was such a traumatic experience. I went to sleep, and like 30 minutes later after I was asleep, I was on the high side of the boat just tacking. Mm-hmm. So in my cabin, which was on the port side, and at that time the way we were sailing, is up in the air over waterline in my bed with a hammock that you stretch over to the wall and hook up so you don't roll onto the bed and fall.
Yeah.
Well, that hammock is what woke me up. It broke loose from the wall when we were totally laid over, caught under full sail, laid over on our side, masts in the water, and I got thrown into my door. Crunch, I wake up, seeing a flash of light, broke the door out, and the water's coming in through the hull. The vessel's laid on its side, we're sinking. And I was like, my God, I thought it was over with. I had to crawl into it. You know how the hallway is in a single wide trailer?
Yeah.
That's
basically the size of it. You said 15 feet.
In a trailer,
15 feet is your widest. That's about as wide as a single wide trailer.
You know how when you're in your trailer, one of the funny questions you can always ask, at least I thought it was funny, because I'd say to somebody, hey, can I use your restroom? And they would tell me where it is. It's like I laughed when I'd ask that, because it's like, where can you go? You look down this little single wide trailer. It's like going through the Hall of Escapade, approaching my cabin, the same kind of size feel, barely fit through the hall. Old trailer, and it's like I had to crawl on my hands and knees to get out of the boat. Through that, it turned horizontal, but was vertical.
I hear people talk about things like the multiverse, and I think about stuff like this, and I go, there's one version of me that died then. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what the neat thing to mention about that is that there's something that we all share. It's like you either got it, you don't. I think everyone does have it, but it's how you're raised around it. Mm-hmm. And that's to survive.
Yeah.
And when you have to talk about fear, there's a lot of things you can say about sailing, which are indicative of the reality of what it's like. And to this day, it's probably like that. I don't think it would be any different. If anything, it's more dangerous today in many ways than it was when we did it, because of the shipping traffic, the amount of ships, superhighways on the ocean. They come straight.
Oh yeah.
You're sailing across one of those highways, you're quite a pedestrian in your little 80-foot sailboat.
Yeah.
They'll go over you and they won't even know they hit you. They could kill you later.
Not only shipping containers, but even military ships nowadays are just giant cities.
Yeah, they're big, but it's like those ships that are doing the shipping on the shipping lanes.
Yeah.
For products.
Oh yeah, I've seen them down in Charleston.
Those things are ridiculous. They put autopilot on. They have sat nav, and they're supposed to have somebody awake at all times on the bridge. But I understand that can be a little boring of a job. Sometimes those guys fall asleep. And if you're at nighttime, even if you have your navigation lights on, and you see a vessel coming, it's an intersect course, and you're going to have a possible collision. If you were to fall asleep on your sailboat and keep going like that, one of those ships is not going to even necessarily notice you.
Even if they hit you, they wouldn't even know it.
They might hear a sound, boom, in the hull for 1 second.
For a second.
What was that? I don't know. It might get some scratches and a few dents, but they'll put you under.
Yeah.
And so it's like what happens is like, when you have the fear thing. What I'm saying is that, when you suddenly get a storm, you suddenly realize that you have no choice. You're on a boat. Mm-hmm. There is no choice. There's no choice to make. It's scary. If you've never experienced it before, it's terrifying. But that terrifying thing, it's got to be similar to a soldier who goes into combat in many ways. They say that soldiers hesitate sometimes to shoot back when they're first fired upon, if they've never been to combat before.
It's disbelief, I think.
Yeah, it's like a shock of the incident, whatever it is. Yeah. It's just surreal, and you just don't know how to react because you've never been there before. It's a virgin experience. So, what's the movie Black Hawk Down? The guy says, "Man, you're shooting at me. You're shooting at me. Well, shoot back." Yeah. And it's like, well, here you are facing a storm, and when you get into it, you're scared. Your adrenaline pumps. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go to the bathroom. If you have to go to the bathroom, you still go to the bathroom, but you're not going to make it to a bathroom. it's going to happen on you.
Yeah.
You're not going to even think about it. You're sitting there holding the helm or cranking a winch or fighting for the survival of the ship. Instinct turns over. It takes over everything, and you no longer have time to be scared. You become an adrenaline amped
It's all
individual,
Yeah.
all endorphins, and you're just there to survive. And you taste like salt because there's never a moment on a sailboat where you don't get, if it's not raining, you have dry salt on you. If it's raining, the rain never comes enough to get the salt off you because ocean waves are going to still strike and put some more salt on you. And salt is dripping off the masts and the sails onto you. And
So your skin is always feeling
salt
dried
gets a lot
out,
of lotion,
cracked.
cracked in the lips and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You know, and you always taste salt. And it's like it's a pretty.
every time you lick your lips or blink your eyes or rub your eyes. You're like,
Yeah. A lot of that stuff happens, you know. And it's
Jeez.
like, but there we are on the sailboat fighting the storm, and that's when the boat laid over. I woke up from my sleep, having to escape the boat, thinking it was over with.
Yeah.
All of our adventures and everything that had happened, so I
Yeah.
thought this is finally it. We're going down. The water's already rushing past me inside the boat. And it's dark, not a light on, and I know my way out of the boat. And so I start getting into that hall, and I start making my way to the right to get to the companionway in the helms room. We have a helms room, navigation room underneath the cockpit. And as I'm heading that way, suddenly lightning flashes. And that's my first glimpse that it's not night. I had no idea that it wasn't.
yeah, because you were asleep.
I was asleep and I woke up, you know, and it's like it's dark.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get out of the rushing water that's coming in through the companionway, which is now a formerly vertical aspect of the vessel, even if it's leaning over from tacking, to now horizontal completely. And the water's coming in, I see the lightning flash, and you can see like a waterfall or a fountain coming through the cockpit. It's just destroying the interior with ocean water, you know. And I make it to the cockpit, and I'm crawling out, and my mom is standing in front of me on the side of the deck house, holding onto the wheel of the boat, and the boat's laid on its side. And I climb out, you know, and it's like we're going down. It's like the only thing you think. I look over and lightning flashes again, and you can see our sails and our mast in the ocean, in, you know, where the vessel got laid there, and we're just getting pushed by the seas. And like, but it was pretty amazing. Escapade had enough of her keel. She was a full-length keel, not a dagger keel that you have on sailboats, but actually from the bow of the boat, a gradual slope down to the deepest point of the vessel at the stern by the rudder, into the back of the vessel, just shy of the rear, and behind the mizzen mast. You know, it's what makes it a catch. But it's like there's a big rudder there, and then the keel's 8 feet deep, and the keel on Escapade was made with its ballast built into the keel, solid steel plate on the bottom of the vessel. And the ballast was put into there very securely into the hull there. So Escapade, out of all odds, that water dumped out of her sail, and over a period there, the waves are rocking us, and we're on our side. It was almost like the hand of God or something came and just suddenly pushed the sails, started dumping water, and Escapade's weight on her keel starts countering, and the vessel's facing into the wind. The sails for a moment aren't catching wind, which would just push you back down sideways. And that's when we suddenly have to get the sails down, because you're full sail, and the vessel gets pushed into the wind, going up a mast, gets righted, but then the sails are loose, flapping like this.
Was your brother with you during this time?
No, he'd been.
So this is just you, your mom, and your dad?
Yeah. We were sailing, by that time we were returning to the U.S. after years at sea. But we were actually off the coast of the Carolinas when that happened. That storm, we were sailing from St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands to Grand
You could have been eating chicken nuggets and...
I could have been eating chicken nuggets. I tried one time. I remember the legend.
Shopping for husky pants with
me.
me.
I was a skinny brat, man. I was like a little skinny kid, man.
You should have chicken nuggets. I'm just like...
So you know what? It's funny because McDonald's, they have the McDonald's story in it too, but it's like, I had not seen a McDonald's, gosh, for years.
Yeah.
I was like, those golden arches, I mean, that was like, to me, that was like good sex right now. You know,
I'm sure after the storm, like, all of you had to be like, what the hell are we doing? This is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, there were times you thought that. I didn't. By that time, man, I was starting to get old enough, man, where I was starting to have enough experience with my parental problems because my father was abusive. Their marriage was breaking apart. My dad was violent, you know, and he was a tyrant. And he was like a Captain Bligh. And so, I mean, in some ways, I have benefited from a lot of things that he's taught me. And most certainly, it took me for, it took me outside of my age group to find people to even communicate with. Because when I arrived here in South Carolina, I hadn't, one thing I didn't have, Josh, was I wasn't a kid.
Yeah.
I've been robbed in my childhood in a lot of ways, having to do adult responsibilities from helm duty from a young age on, and all the things that go with maintaining a sailboat, the work that goes into that.
Well, you were basically a pirate, and you
Yeah,
were suddenly introduced to suburbia.
Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of work, and it's like, and then I didn't get socialized the same way as you would if you were in school.
Communication had to be totally different. The ideas of society was
in
different.
On one side, I'm on a collegiate level.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, when I came back here to the U.S., I've been deprived of a childhood. And when I ran away from my dad, I ended up here in South Carolina over time, very, quickly. But when I did come back from out of the country, where I ran from my sailboat, where it was me and my father at the time, it was right before my 17th birthday, I think, right around that time, right after, that I ran away from him and swam to shore, half a mile away, snuck off the boat. I was terrified. I thought I was going to get eaten by a shark, but I made that swim for freedom. And
that's a long way.
Let me tell you something.
It looked close, but it's a long way. I made it to land
every single time I swam, because I almost got killed by a shark off the Carolinas. That's another thing. I was almost eaten by a shark when we were sailing by the Carolinas on that same storm trip, approaching Norfolk, Virginia. When we were off the Carolinas here, I almost became the victim of a 23-footer, which was an oceanic white-tip shark. I think the breed standard is supposed to be like 19 feet at the max, but this was much bigger than that. It came right alongside the sailboat, and I barely got out of the water before I would have been dead. And I never went back in the ocean water again for years and years and years, because it so scarred me what almost happened to me. But anyway, going back to the boat like that, it's like when we were sailing off here and we were in that storm to this day, I mean, if I were to see that movie, A Perfect Storm,
yeah.
I walked into that movie by accident at a friend's place here. I don't remember what year, and I didn't even know. They were dark in their living room, and they were playing a movie, and I think I just got there with some other friends or something, and was walking in. They were all watching a movie in the dark in their living room, and it was that scene.
Lightning, dark.
Lightning,
waves,
dark,
giant as you could see.
Lightning, dark, and there's this TV showing this heavy seas, and I'm suddenly fixated on this big screen television showing that, and I'm like, I suddenly see that, and then
it's like a flashback.
And then suddenly, which God, what it was, it suddenly they showed the ship when she died, when they were lost, and the stern up, and the stern comes up like that, and you go vertical on a wave wall. You never put your ass to a storm. You don't sail downwind. You sail into a storm. That's a sailor's creed. You face the weather. If you don't do that, that rule goes in life. The second you turn your tail towards it, you've exposed your vulnerability, and a vessel is not made to take it from the rear. So it's like you will. Well, if you want to die, go ahead and go downwind in the storm. It's like very difficult to even steer your sailboat when you're coming down a wave like that, surfing with the wind behind you. It makes the vessel want to turn left, turn right, and doesn't want to go straight. It's like a very difficult circumstance. But when I saw that in that movie, I don't know what happened to me. Which is suddenly everything, I don't know if it was lightning flash or suddenly the terror seeing that, suddenly everything went white, and I was out on the floor in La La Land thinking I was in a storm. Gone. Just like that.
I know it's hard to imagine time, or hard to think about time, but from the moment you woke up on that ship, how long do you think that storm lasted? Was it hours? Was it?
No, I think it was probably more like about 45 minutes, 45 minutes of increase of the total hell. Longest storm was the one that we were rescued at sea the first time when escapade was damaged. We were almost pushed onto the rocks of Algiers, Africa.
We're going to have to do that on a different time.
Yeah, it's a different time, but that,
we're almost 2 hours. My computer.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean, I can't believe blabbing like this. No, it's good fun. It's like it's amazing.
We can do more of these. I definitely want to talk to you more about it because it's fascinating. But
man, I haven't even arrived back to America yet. I think that you talk about your life like that. I've been blessed. My whole family has. It's like I think there's so many things. It's like I said, those big circles, and there's something incredible about the way it comes around. And so I started believing, man, that You have a purpose.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's, and it's like I've got this, boy, it's unbelievable. I look at it, and so I'm very grateful that I'm still alive today. And I think I've accomplished a few things, and then I've failed in other things, and had the hardships that we all face in life. And then I still find myself trying to remember that, what? There's another adventure fixing to happen.
Yeah.
There's something that I just don't even know about. And with me, that's a big deal because adventures in my family, they're not nothing.
They're pretty monumental.
They're monumental adventures. They're
Yeah.
stuff. They're the stuff that they're historic. They're something which is just like pushes you to the threshold always.
Well, they say that everything, there's an old saying that that God never gives you more than you can handle, and that everything that you're faced against is just another step towards teaching you the next thing you're supposed to face.
Right.
Like it all helps build your resilience, and it helps build your knowledge of what you can endure, what you're willing to endure, what you can put up with, and what you can't. And hopefully, along the way, you learn to survive. Like you said, that fear instinct, that survival instinct takes over. But every step of the way is just knowledge to help you face the next piece of adversity that you thought you wouldn't be able to handle before. And when you're talking about things like Mother Nature, waves and stuff, you had no control of that. It's something really that's just, it's bigger than the man versus man type, confrontations.
Yeah, that's why I have an opposition. Some people think it's crazy. That's why I have an opposition toward all this global warming stuff. I'll tell you, when Earth is ready to
when Mother Nature decides that's it,
she'll spit us off.
That's it, yeah.
And I don't think that we can do as much with our Earth as a volcano erupting.
Yeah.
The amount of toxic ash and everything that it puts into the atmosphere is more pollutant. And I'm not saying that we aren't changing the world in our own ways. We devastate everything. It's humanity's secondary trait is to always
use the resources,
destroy things, make something for the advancement of man turns out to be something which kills man. It's like, so it happens,
But every step of this is just knowledge for the next thing. One of the ideas when I started this stupid podcast was I wanted to build community. I wanted to be able to have people come together and talk about their stories, talk about their life, talk about whatever. I named it Stuff I Heard because it could literally be someone hearing a conversation from someone else and going, what, I heard this thing on this podcast. And, to me, the internet is a resource that we could use to help each other enrich our lives through community and through sharing. And
exactly in line with what you just said right there. I concur. I agree 100% because I've learned in my life one of the most valuable lessons I think I've ever learned is to never predict. You can never predict. You'll never know when it's going to happen, Josh. You could brush across the most insignificant of people in your own mind, something that you never thought would even affect you. And it can be one action from one person which forever changes your world. I've experienced things like that too, and it's like it happens. You have to be, and someone will say something that'll suddenly make you think of a higher thought, which changes the way you looked at things in life, period. And it could be a monumental change, or it could be something which is just fate, or somebody who's sick could come and destroy your life or wreck you.
Yeah.
And you were just on the way over to meet your family for dinner.
Yeah.
You never know. So those things are influences.
Yeah.
And they happen around us. And so sharing information is always the way to go. But
I'd like to have you on here again to talk about more of this stuff.
Yeah,
I feel kind of weird about wrapping this up now, but I've actually I've done a couple that are around this time, but right now people are like, Jesus, I got to pee. It's 2 hours, blah, blah, whatever.
Well, you know what? I had a really good time doing it, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back. It's like, I hope that, I don't know, you see, because I don't know nothing about your podcast, man, because I live in this little bubble of life right now where I don't even have the internet. I've got access to it because of my cell phone technology, but
I've got tens of listeners out there.
It sounds like me first to the Guineas. You ever heard the band? They have this one thing they say, right now we have dozens of fans all over the world.
Yeah. I get to see analytics, and there are people all over the world that listen to this, and it's really amazing to me, but I guess it's through technology and people sharing and finding it in different ways and whatnot. But, I figure there's no rule takers. There's nobody saying that you have to follow certain guidelines. There's nobody saying that you can't create anything. Literally, with the internet right now, you can do anything. And I try to tell other people, I'm not pulling off a magic trick. I'm doing what anybody can do. And so along this path, I'm trying to also get people involved and do their own. So
that's cool. It's really cool. And it's like you said too, man. It's a way for people to share knowledge, and the ability for us as human beings around the world to somehow evolve past the chaos that we have in today's reality is to understand each other as human beings. And we have a lot of similarities, even with the differences. So I think it's really cool to, whenever you can, to reach out. And I sometimes feel bad for people that don't do that.
Yeah.
That don't get away, getting out there and leaving your house or your neighborhood, your hometown, and taking a backpack, whatever it is you're going to do, and finding your own sailboat, hitting it. I think that's a really smart thing to do in your life.
If life is about the journey, and your journey basically creates a tapestry of your life, I mean, you've lived an incredible tapestry so far.
I've had an incredible life.
Holy cow.
If God takes me tomorrow, man, I know it. If God takes me tomorrow,
most people never travel 50 miles from where they live.
Really?
They never travel 50 miles from where they live.
I've done more than Columbus and Magellan
and
and all them people combined. It's I'm pretty lucky. I know that. But then I've learned also, that's another story. Where luck comes from. That'll have to be what we talk about. That's a neat story from Florence.
I'm wearing my lucky shirt today, by the way.
You are wearing it. So I will hint.
Which is a joke in itself.
I will hint that
I was totally expecting to spill something on it the first day I had it on. And I was like, that'd be fitting. If I spill something on this shirt, I'd wear it every day if I did. Because I'd be like, this is what happens.
I heard a different story about luck.
Yeah.
And it happened here in Florence. And I'm not going to go into it now because I think that maybe that'll be something we can just mention on if we do this again, man. But I got a good story about luck.
I'll write it down.
And what happened here in Florence was a shocker.
Yeah.
And it's not to blame on Florence, but I'm just saying you never know when something's going to affect you.
Yeah.
And you never know where it comes from. And sometimes it's not cool. It can be good and it can be evil. And the world is filled with both.
Yeah.
So it's like I've had some incredible things happen. But,
well, hey, man, I'm going to wrap this up for now.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a guest on my 200th episode. I'll get you information on how to listen to this.
200th episode. I have another 200 story too. We got to go over.
And I got you a shirt.
Oh, that's cool, man.
To take with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey everybody! Thanks for listening to the podcast.
I was wearing one glove. Does that make me
Ron's
a little bit?
The Michael Jackson of the podcast. Apparently, he's wearing one glove.
Trying to be half as safe as I was before.
Half as safe. Only using the left hand. See, he's got the like a stranger. But yeah, thanks for listening to the podcast. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, and be part of the community. If you got something you want to ask Ron a question, send me a message, and I'll pass that along, and we'll attempt to answer it on the next one. But
that'd be great.
I wanted to have you on again to just do like a background origin story. I had no idea the information I was going to get is really incredible.
It's like we haven't scratched the surface, man. That's what's funny about it. It's like I don't want to go on a big humdinger, but and like brag about myself. But if you want to talk stuff, man, I've got a pretty big plethora of stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for being a part of this. Stick around for more. I'm going to keep doing this as long as you guys keep listening. Take care. And as always, I end this by saying, cue the cow.
Aloha.
All right. Let's stop on there.
Cool.
Let's stop on here.
Yeah, you know what, man? That was a blast.
Yeah.
That was real fun.